All right, thank you, Jordan. Madison County first responders were sent across the valley that day to help assist other areas when tornadoes came through. But that afternoon, their own community took a direct hit.
47 is heading towards straight to
10 years have passed. But the images of April 27th, 2011, still in the minds of many.
It brings up a lot of tough memories for me.
Some memories not yet distant, but the multiple rounds of tornadoes made other memories a blur.
It was just one after another all day. It was like responding to a train wreck, and before you got to the train wreck, another train wreck happened.
Especially for those who ran towards danger to save others when destruction seemed to be everywhere.
I was actually on the road towards Coleman as Coleman was actually being hit, and I got about halfway there, and the folks in Coleman called and said, "Hey, I think we're okay. We don't need those trailers just yet." Well, about that time, Madison County started getting hit.
Many of those ambulances and fire and rescue crews were sent to the Anderson Hills neighborhood in Harvest.
When we arrived, we of course seen the destruction, but then at that time we were informed of a second tornado coming. We actually were parked on Highway 53 when the second tornado actually come overhead of us and of course landed farther east.
Anderson Hills is no stranger to tornadoes, but responders say this time was different. The damage much worse. Beautiful homes turned to rubble.
Back down behind me, some of these houses are some that we searched. They were damaged. They weren't completely gone. There are some that are over to my right that were gone.
There was a moment when it was like, oh crap. You know, you start listening to the calls that come through, and you're starting to hear things like, trees down, roofs down. You've got patients that are they're starting to call in more trauma-like patients.
As responders search for injured people in Anderson Hills, businesses just across Highway 53 were destroyed as well.
There was a little grocery store just south of here that was just leveled.
After years of being an empty lot, construction is now underway. But 10 years ago, this is what the Piggly Wiggly looked like after a tornado went right through it while people were inside.
It was full of people. And what they did, they got into the cooler, which they felt like was probably the safest place. And ended up was the safest place at the time to be, so the tornado didn't. And nobody got hurt.
Just south of the Piggly Wiggly and Anderson Hills, another neighborhood in Madison County was hit.
We were actually redeployed to Yarborough Road and Stovall. At that point, we did find some people over there, of course, survivors. There were some deceased in the area, but they had already been found.
There were times when we were just taking multiple people in one ambulance, to the hospital at once, which is something on an everyday basis we typically do not do.
253 Alabamians died on this day. 9 of those people in Madison County.
Folks had to assess the injuries that were, not viable, not life. They were deceased persons at that point, and they had to deal with that. And that's tough. That's tough to deal with.
That was the hard part. The hard part was finding people that had passed, and knowing that we knew this was coming, and unfortunately that it turned out the way it did.
The youngest victim in Madison County, just a teenager. The oldest was almost 80 years old.
We still grieve with those families to this very day that lost those 9.
The day after the tornadoes, the work was just getting started. Across the street from Anderson Hills, first responders set up shop at one of the only buildings not flattened, the Redstone Federal Credit Union.
I used to tell people this was the Madison County Sheriff's Department for about 2 weeks. During the time that we were doing search and recovery, making sure that everybody was safe after the tornadoes came through.
With power lines down and families looking for loved ones, the search proved to be difficult.
It doesn't always necessarily mean that they are missing because they were killed or blown away by the tornado. They may be at a shelter somewhere, and of course, Cell phone services is limited, you know, because all the lines are jammed and there's no electricity.
But among the pain in Madison County were everyday heroes, specifically the volunteer fire departments who risked their lives and gave their time to help others out of the good of their hearts when they too were hurting.
You get people that they've lost everything they've had and everything they will ever have, and you know, the volunteers, they really do help out, even if they have lost themselves.
That selfless love is what pulled this community through 10 years later, and neighbors are still helping neighbors. It's a type of compassion and strength that no tornado can ever destroy.
It just shows the resiliency here in this community. You can't tell there's been a tornado here, but the scars are there, and we will forever be there.
There were two messages these first responders really wanted me to share with you. One is that each of their departments learned from this event and over the past 10 years have found even better ways to respond. The second message is the importance of having a plan when you know there may be severe weather. Know where your safe place is and go there when it's time.